Northern Power Women podcast. For your career and your life, no matter what business you're in.
Hello, happy June, and welcome to episode 24 of the Northern Power Women podcast. Yes, we are 2 years old. Grab yourself a large slice of cake immediately. I'm Sam Walker, and this month we were in Leeds, discussing the Leeds International Festival, how and why companies need to get greener, and why the Bank of England has never been led by a woman, which got us talking about financial education too.
It is very much like that baseline education starting at schools, because, you know, if I know what type of triangle something is, but I don't know how to apply for a mortgage, it's not necessarily transferable.
In the big interview, you will hear from Lorna Fitzsimons, former MP and founder and CEO of The Pipeline. It is a really inspiring interview this month. Lorna talks very candidly about the challenges that she's faced and also the professional disappointments that she has overcome.
I learned that you can remake yourself. You know, necessity is the mother of all invention, and that's the truth of my life. I've never thought that I had the option to fail.
And in Ask The Hive, your friend wants to work at your company, but you know that she's not up to the job. What do?
She will probably struggle in the company. I think she will probably suffer because of that. And if your relationship is as close as I would hope it is, then maybe not immediately, but she should come to appreciate your honesty.
But first, let's catch up with all the latest news from Northern Power Women HQ from our very own founder, Simone Roche.
Well, happy 2-year anniversary to us. It's episode 24 and 2 years of the Northern Power Women podcast with there's Sam Walker. Fantastic. And this month we were delighted to record at the first Women in Leeds digital event, which took place at the ever so impressive Nexus building at the University of Leeds. Thanks to our panels, Nicola Good, Claire Duffield, and a special thanks to Stuart Clark, who zoomed in at the last minute and took part in the podcast, his second time on the Northern Power Women podcast. I really enjoyed being on the Female Founders panel too at the festival. Such a great day. Thanks for inviting me. You'll look forward to hearing our person with purpose this month, the formidable and all-round power woman and co-founder of The Pipeline, Lorna Fitzsimons. It's ace. We're excited this month to launch our Power of Women campaign in conjunction with Professor Jane Turner at Teesside University and Chris at Remember Media. We're creating a book. It's going to shift and lift the aspirations and ambitions among young females across the Northern Powerhouse region. And we want stories to be shared. We want women with vision, guts, dynamism, some of whom took traditional career paths, but predominantly those who took an idea and fought hard, even when they were written off or faced major hurdles. We're open for your stories from the end of June, so please keep watching out on our social media. We've been all over the north again this month on them trains. We've had a great celebration event at KPMG for our ever impressive and growing alumni. Check out the special episode recorded, including mini conversations with our Future List and Power List winners and commended. Also check out the gallery on our Flickr albums. We've got some great videos as well, recorded by our social team and also with the students again at Burnley College. Thank you so much. I was honoured to be at the EY Foundation Impact Awards, celebrating amazing role models. Such fantastic stories and what a great future these individuals have. Loved attending the Girl Guiding event with the Countess of Wessex at Google HQ and look forward to collaborating with Guiding in the future. We hosted the first in the series of role models with NatWest up in Cumbria at T-Bay Services, best service station in the country, I swear. And it was great to see the Women in Nuclear Cumbria bringing their trophy for winning Innovation Award at the Northern Power Women Awards. They brought it up and they brought it on tour as they continue their journey across the region. I was thrilled to be part of the Key Women in Business podcast and interview too, which was fantastic this month, and look forward to sharing that with you as well. We've got lots coming up too. We've got a Future List event at Mawson. We're recording our podcast in Durham, so please come along to that. And we've got the next in our series of role model events talking about funding for female entrepreneurs, and that'll be in Preston as well with NatWest. And stop press, we've got a great event coming up with Bank of America, Merrill Lynch at Chester Racecourse on June the 26th in the evening. Fantastic event, you're all welcome. So whether you're in education, looking for that career, we're going to be talking about cyber technology, and we're going to have a fantastic, exciting keynote speaker. So please check out our website for more details, and we'll see you next month. Keep the conversation going.
Thank you so much to the wonderful and tireless Simone Roche MBE, who is, as you're about to hear, also brilliant at hosting our discussion panels as well. There is no end to this woman's talents. Now, each month we get together somewhere in the north to chat, to network, and also to discuss some of the month's hottest topics. And this time, we were back in Leeds.
Wowzers, welcome to the Nexus building. Isn't it amazing? Well, I think I would have gone to university if I saw a building like this. And we are here at the University of Leeds, back in Leeds. We love Leeds. And we're delighted to be recording episode 24. I can't believe it. That's practically 2 years of the Northern Power Women podcast. And today we have 3 amazing panellists for us. And we are going to be having 3 very insightful conversations, I believe. So the first person we've got is the wonderful, back on it for the second time, actually, Stuart Clark, the co-founder of the Leeds Digital Festival in its 4th year, no less. 240 events over each festival. He runs his own marketing and PR company, and he is an all-round advocate and supporter of gender equality. Thank you, Stuart. You're most welcome. Second on our panel today, we have the wonderful Nicola Good. I love that name. It's like a movie star name. Who is the co-founder and chief operating officer of That Works For Me. Nicola has over 15 years of project and program management experience under her belt, working client and agency side. And she has very recently, and I mean recently as in last week, left her job as program director, not just because of this podcast though, no, to focus on her startup, That Works For Me. And this is about the supportive and affordable flexible working platform, which is due to launch in the coming months. And she is also a member of She Does Digital. I love She Does Digital. Finally, we have Claire Duffield, who is the Digital Engagement Librarian. What a great title that is. We talked about the Library of the North, actually, on the last time we were here in Leeds, at Leeds Library for Leeds City Council. Claire translates libraries into a digital world, setting the vision and direction in this area by using a range of digital tools and technologies to manage and creatively develop digital engagement and inclusion, such as 100% Digital Leeds and the Tech Mums Club. Welcome to all of our panellists. We are here today recording at the Nexus, but as part of the Women in Leeds digital event. So we're delighted to be hosted here today. So let us take a start. We have 3 questions, and the first of our questions, the Leeds International Festival took place last month. But how important are bold events like this for raising the profile of the North? Do they really serve our local residents? Ooh, I'm coming to you first.
I think it's great. I think anything that shines a spotlight on the city is going to be brilliant. You know, we're the second most diverse city after London. And I read a stat the other day saying that there's 170 different languages spoken in this city. Makes perfect sense that we would host events like this, you know, bold, innovative, exciting things. You know, I've always found the city to be great in tech, arts, food. You know, last month has seen 4 of these different festivals going on. We've had the International Festival, Digital Festival, Transform and Indie Food. So it's a really exciting time to visit if you're not from here, but an even more exciting time if you are. You know, everyone really pulls together and it feels like a really collaborative time of the year. The only thing that I would say, it's getting a bit like Glastonbury, which is that you can't actually get to everything that you want to see. And I've struggled a little bit myself with too many events, which is pretty good problem to have, I think.
It is a good problem to have, and no wellies and no flowers in your hair. What do you think?
So I agree. The International Festival is amazing. It's got some really highbrow events. I really enjoyed going to the Sunday Practice event, which saw local authors, Khadija Ibrahim and her daughter Rima, who host a monthly spoken word event at the Cellar Bar. And it's a really amazing event. It's these young people come and talk about their experiences. And it's really important for us to hear about that. And it's great that they've now got this platform as part of International Festival. I'm also really inspired by Matt Haig, who champions mental health as an author. And I think that's been made accessible for me because I won VIP tickets on Instagram, so I didn't have to pay for these events, really. A lot of these events you do have to pay for, which could be a barrier to some of our citizens within the city. And they are also all in the city centre as well. So it means that people do have to get into the city centre to attend these events. And I just think when we do put things on, we really need to take this into consideration so that the whole city can attend them. And as part of Leeds City Council and Leeds Libraries, we do our best for the city to aspire to go to these events and be part of the digital communities within Leeds, which are, I think, the strongest in the country, really. So we have our Tech Mums Clubs, which means that mums will go through 10 weeks of training with us and their confidence will grow, and hopefully from maybe quite low skills they're now coming out with higher skills, but importantly with higher confidence, and they can see that these events are for them.
It's a real diversity, isn't it? A real flavour of types. So whether it's the arts, whether it's tech, whether it's digital, creative, I think that's going to be a great thing. Khadija, she performed when we had something here in Leeds a couple of years ago called NPW Live, and she came and performed her spoken word poetry, and she's so amazingly impactful. So I think often it's about giving a platform and a stage to these voices that sometimes you may not already heard. And I'm thinking about the cost barrier, because I know, there can be a cost for these events, but equally it can be 40 odd quid to go and see the football, So I think there are peers. I know we had a look. There was a silent dance troupe which was completely free. I think there was at least another sort of 20-30% of things that were free, I think, which is quite positive. Over to you, Stuart. Obviously, as being the co-founder of Leeds Digital Festival, and do you get involved as well with the Leeds International Festival as well?
Well, we haven't been involved too much with the International Festival, mainly because they're really busy putting their events on, and we're really busy putting our events on. But this year we joint hosted an amazing event. We were 20 data startups from the Netherlands came over for what was called the Northern Lands Summit. And it's co-sponsored by the Dutch government. So that was absolutely a brilliant event about how we can work closer on the tech sectors in the UK and over in the Netherlands as well. I think it's been great to see the International Festival find its feet and its voice this year. In its third year, there's some amazing events that were on there. We're really getting some amazing national and international coverage, and we've been working quite closely with them in terms of not so much events, but in terms of coverage, and that's worked really well. And as Nicola said, we've got the Indie Food, we've got Transform Festival, which happens every couple of years. So we're really having that almost becoming a city of festivals, because it happens throughout the year. The International Film Festival in the autumn is probably one of the biggest film festivals in the UK, and it's again people flying in from all around the world for there. So it'd be interesting to see how we can develop that City of Festivals theme throughout the year.
And I think it's great to see that collaboration. As you're saying, there's 4 different festivals that have just taken place within a month. So I think it's really exciting. In the room here, and we've got a very culturally rich audience today. Show of hands, who has attended any of the festivals? 2/3 perhaps? Anything from the audience about the impact, how these events and these festivals that come to your city, how do they serve the local community? I'm coming your way.
I think because of the variety of festivals that we have, obviously the digital ones are at my heart and I think they're great, but we'd mentioned the food festivals and other things like that. They bring people to the city. So I get that there's challenges, people who can't afford to pay for some of the events, but it brings outsiders in. and that brings money and it brings commerce to the city and gets people here, gets them knowing who we are and what we are.
And seeing what a great city Leeds is. It's that whole economic benefit, isn't it, of coming into the city. I really wanted to go and see the silent dance troupe. Thought that would have been excellent. I thought I would be good because I've got no rhythm, so I thought it might have been work for me. Right, let's go on to our next question. We've seen extensive demonstration by Extinction Rebellion over the last month, and 16-year-old climate change activist Greta Thunberg speaking in Parliament. We're all encouraged to do our bit as individuals to help the planet, but should businesses be doing more? And what steps could your sector take? Stuart, I'm coming your way, look slowly.
Yeah, I think we all need to be doing more, both on an individual basis for companies getting involved and certainly local and national government. And I think the tech sector's got a really important place to play there, not just in terms of, one of the things that gets a lot of attention is electric vehicles, but one of the issues there, if we're using coal-powered power stations to find the electricity to power those vehicles, it's probably not as clean as we could be. So looking at alternative technologies, improving on the likes of solar collection of power, I think that's important. Something like home working, making it easier, providing the tech for home working, so we're not getting, people trying to commute in at the same 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. How can we stagger those journey times? Does everybody really need to work in an office 5 days a week? Can it be 3 days a week? And just seeing if we can, if Leeds, for example, is it's a busy city. We're getting the catchment area goes from Darlington in the north, Sheffield in the south, Manchester in the west. So we have lots of people coming in. I think tech's got an amazing part to play in there to reduce emissions, and particularly on the transport commuting side.
And we've talking about flexible working and working from home working and agile working. And obviously, Nicola, this is something you're just about to launch. So maybe this is a question that you can answer. How can your sector, or how will your sector, maybe it'll be part of the DNA of your new business?
I think it will, yeah. I mean, this is something that worries me on a personal level, as I think it does many other people. And you've got to ask the question, how our businesses, the businesses I've worked in the past, they're all trying to do their bit. But do they actually know what they need to be doing as well, is a question. I actually think that there needs to be an adoption of new positions in businesses where actually specialists come in. Now, bear with me with this name, but eco-warriors maybe, or eco-auditors, but people who come in and look at everything from whatever type of business you're doing, whether it's product, whether it's a process business, looking at the suppliers that you're using. There's so many things that need to be considered. It's a big minefield, I think. We'll definitely be trying to adopt that and looking for people through our platform and seeing if there is anybody who could do that. But I really think to make a change, all businesses need to start thinking about that now, and the people that they need to get into to specialise in doing that.
And businesses are formed with procurement departments, CSR, marketing, brands. So there's no reason we all couldn't have an eco-warrior. I think we could have Northern Power. We could all be eco-warriors, couldn't we? And I think there's a whole point about what responsibility that we as consumers also have, as well as business, because sometimes there's only, as consumers, we can only buy or do what's there. And last month at the London Marathon, they, for the first year, gave out seaweed gel and water capsules to make the impact on plastic waste during the event. But what do you think, Claire?
So I've been completely inspired by Greta. I think she's an amazing public speaker, especially for a 14-year-old, and she's got the government's listening to her now. So it's just amazing. And I've obviously made small differences in my own personal life, trying to avoid plastics, shopping locally and things. But I think working in libraries are pretty much the ultimate in reuse. We loan books. People can take out a book and then it's handed on to the next person. So a book can get hundreds of uses. But we also loan other things, such as bikes now. We've got bike libraries, we've got toy libraries, and that's making it accessible for citizens of Leeds to have access to bikes and toys if they can't afford them, really. But we also work with creative tech educators, such as the Foundation of Creative Digital, and they're amazing. They work with young people and families and schools, and they use code bugs to collect air quality data. And so they're teaching the next generation about tech and how that can be used to look at solutions and make our cities cleaner. And there's also Cyclops Pedal Power who are doing the same, and they've created this amazing model of a city, and each model has some data about how environmentally friendly and the global so their carbon footprint is, and families are tasked with making this city a safer place by adding more green spaces or looking at renewable energy instead of the other options that are currently available. And I think that's really part of our work in the Leeds City Council and Leeds Libraries, is to educate and explore with young people and families so that they can become active citizens and they can be included in the decisions of their cities, really.
And does anyone is involved or work for or with organisations that are doing anything innovative, groundbreaking, simple out there that is making a change? Because this is something we need to be panicking about. We need to be worried, and we've got a 16-year-old there who's come to the fore to have her. To have her voice heard. And so we talked about the responsibility of businesses. There's also the responsibility of those individual role models. Emma Thompson, I think last year when she went to collect her damehood from the palace, she wore vegan trainers, and that might have been, there was that statement, this is where she is. But actually, when it comes to the fact that Nike sells 25 pair of trainers every 25 seconds, and did you know that one pair on average is 13 kilograms of carbon dioxide? Imagine how many weights in the gym that is. It's terrifying. 10 million trainers were sold in Australia last year. So that might have been just one person making a decision, but it's that visibility of role models. Anybody, this is an emotive issue around the table in Northern Power when we're about starting the conversation. So if there's anything you want to hear on the podcast, please email us podcast@northernpowerwomen, or use the Twitter @NorthPowerWomen to join the conversation. But anyone in the room got anything that they'd like to share about anything that they've seen that has inspired, motivated them, or they think could be done? I think it's all been done by Leeds Libraries and Leeds City Councils, to be honest, in the tech sector. Brilliant. Well, let us get on to our final question. You can't believe it, can you? Where did the time go? I'm trying to find my picture, which will work really well on the podcast. Does the Bank of England have a women problem? Okay, for those of you listening on the podcast, I've got a picture from the front of the BBC website from last month, which is a picture of 9 people, 9 white people and 1 female. This was highlighting, very obviously in this picture, that there are very few women at the top of the financial world. There has never been a female governor of the Bank of England, just a very long line of white men, 120 of them. What difference would diversity make to the finances of the country in your view? Would we have had the global financial crisis? I think somebody said to me once, a talk I heard, that actually, if it had been Lehman Sisters and not Lehman Brothers, it would never have happened, the financial crash. But we'll wait to be seen on that. I'm coming your way.
I think it will impact positively. We look at more diverse teams. Language barriers, cultural differences, they can often act as an obstacle for organisations. By hiring employees with different backgrounds and cultures, it makes it possible to work on a global basis, an international basis. And there's another issue there, which is that lots of organisations, including obviously the Bank of England, are saying that they're actually struggling though to find diversity in the candidates that they're seeing come through, which is a huge issue. And I think it's one that we're seeing in the tech sector and lots of other sectors as well. And the particular article that I read on that was that 1 in 9 of the Monetary Committee, 1 in 9 people were women on that. So looking at gender imbalance and what was reported, just under a third study economics, a third of women, which is shocking really. And why are women not studying that? Is there more that we need to be doing at education level to get more women into these sorts of roles? Not to mention then, once you've got them in the roles, the fact that they might want to take time off to have a family. Not saying every woman wants to do that, but they might want to. And then getting them back into the roles after maternity and into these senior positions will be really difficult and challenging for them. So it's something that we definitely need to do more with promoting roles at education level, but then also trying to do more to get women back into business. That's sort of something that I'm very passionate about at the minute with That Works For Me.
Thank you. What do we do in the libraries?
I am not good with money. I am not good with finances. I do not budget. But my mum, she does, and she actively enjoys it. I don't understand why. So I don't know if it is a gender issue. So when we were teaching Tech Mums Clubs, one of our modules was on finance for the family, and my mum actually laughed at me when I told her that. She was like, "You're going to be teaching a group of mums how to budget?" And I'm like, yep, that's what I'll be doing, yeah. And within that group of mums, some people were comfortable with the finances and some were not. So I don't know if it is just a gender thing. It might be more of a class divide as well, like an old boys club. You go to Cambridge or Oxford, your dad's a head of a bank somewhere, there's a position made for you when you graduate. So I think it's taken into consideration the privileges. And so I grew up in quite a nice family. I had access to education, but what if you don't have that because of your race, your gender, disability, sexual orientation? What if you don't have the same opportunities? And I think that's very important in our businesses and our organisations to make those opportunities available to people. And that comes down to the marketing, when we're recruiting for people, when we're putting on events. So I invited a few of our tech mums to this event today, and one of them like, "Oh, I can't come because I'm not a digital professional, I can't come." And I'm like, "You can come." And role models are very important as well to me. I'm sat here because Natasha from Sky was asked to do this, and she said, "No, I want Claire to do it." So you need your cheerleaders as well. So that's the same in digital finance, whatever organisation you're in.
We're a big fan of cheerleaders and role models, and as I said at the start, Stuart, you are a big advocate of gender equality, but just, we talked about financial planning and financial budgeting, and I think I go back to, I think of my northern nan and, collecting the weekly spend, or the weekly, and it would be put in a tin in a Yorkshire tea, even though she was from Liverpool, I'm just playing and it would be on the centre of the table, and she would be the money gatherer and the budgeter, and then she'd go out and do her messages, and always come back with more than she needed, but she was always that person. And we've talked about this on previous podcasts about financial planning. It's something you're never taught. I think when do you learn what APR is, or what, it can be that different language. You're not necessarily taught it in school. We all need to come to Tech Mums. If you can teach it and you didn't get it.
So at Tech Mums, we didn't teach financial budgeting and things, but we showed links to apps that could help you with that, and online resources and things. So
use digital for good. So Stuart, what do you think about, we've talked about the Bank of England having a crisis with women, and actually the Prime Minister, I think, has called out that she's specifically called out for the next head of the Bank of England to take over, Mark Carney, to be female. Are we ever going to get there? Where does it start? Does it start in schools? Does it start with budgeting? Where do we start with this?
Yeah, I think obviously the financial services, just like the tech industry, they're a big issue with gender equality. I think latest stats for the tech sector is about 22% women. When you go into the higher reaches, sort of CTOs, CEOs, that becomes even lower. I think one of the problems we could face, I don't think we should be looking at replacing privately educated white straight men with privately educated white straight women. We need to be reaching out to the BAME communities, LGBT communities, people from lower socio-economic backgrounds, because one, it's the right thing to do, and two, on a sort of purely hard-nosed financial basis, we're reaching out to more talented people, so the companies are going to become stronger and better from that, and the diversity across everything needs to be, and that's the only way we're going to get 30% women, 40% women, by making it open to absolutely everybody. We've seen a slight shift in that. We've seen more apprenticeships coming through. So again, that opens it up to much wider communities, particularly from lower socio-economic backgrounds. And I think we've seen a real change in those areas. A long way to go, but I think the will is there, and I think some of the structures in place are there as well.
Do you think sometimes we talked about finance and banking and shortlists not being balanced and not being wider diverse? It's so important that it's not just about gender, it's about, as Stuart was saying, it's that wider diversity. And we hear this over and over again. We can't find the women, we can't find BAME, we can't find this. Well, where are you looking? Surely it's about looking wider, looking further, and just not do, because if you go where you've always gone, you're going to get exactly the same, So just a show of hand, just from I'm going back to the financial accounting. Who manages the budgets in their homes? Yeah, 90%. Okay, through will or just through I'm just cracking on and I'm doing it? And it's also because you're better than or is it because actually there's only me and I've just got to do it anyway, otherwise I'm going to starve? Any thoughts?
I think personally it does come down to education. So I know, and at kind of a baseline level. So I know recently I applied for a mortgage and I had literally zero idea what was going on and what good looked like. And it's such a huge commitment, and it was so scary. Thankfully, I had kind of the likes of Google and that kind of thing available, but they're all biased opinions. So I think it is very much like that baseline education starting at schools, because if I know what type of triangle something is, but I don't know how to apply for a mortgage, it's not necessarily transferable. So, that's just my opinion anyway. Isosceles triangle. It's the only one I remember. Did you get the mortgage? I did. Yeah! I don't know if it's a good one. I don't know. So we'll be all round to yours for a housewarming, and somebody else can budget it though, I think. So, but we again, I say we talked about this previously. I remember the person we had on the panel, she said, I got the credit card that I applied for. She goes, I've still got it attached to the paperwork that it came from because I was too scared to use it. But I had it because it was one of those, I was away and I might have needed it, but I didn't know what to do with it. And, she went to the god of Google, I think, to find her answers. So any final thoughts from our stellar panel? Well, listen, thank you so much for coming out today to the Amazing Nexus. Thank you for all of your insight. Thank you. Please do keep the conversation going. #NPW podcast. And if you've got any questions for our Ask the Hive, please email us, podcast@Northern-Power-Women. But before we go, please say a big thank you to our amazing panel.
A big thank you again to our wonderful panel, and of course to Simone. And if you came along to take part, thank you to you as well. Now, we'd love to see you, so do keep your eye on Twitter @NorthPowerWomen for details of our next recording. And if you'd like to host us, well, we'd love to come. Just get in touch, podcast@northernpowerwomen.com. The big interview this month comes from Lorna Fitzsimons, former MP, of course, and founder and CEO of The Pipeline, which works with organisations through leadership programmes and consultations to help them achieve their diversity goals. She is a one-woman powerhouse, as you are about to hear. Now, we started by talking about how you can be really affected by your formative years, and Lorna had a pretty tough time at school.
I had been terrifically bullied in primary school, and that still has a lasting effect. And you don't realise it, but occasionally something will happen and it brings it back to you because you wonder why you're responding in the way you're responding, and you think about it. I was a dyslexic ginger nut with glasses and freckles. For goodness sake, I had Target printed on my forehead. But when I went to secondary school, there were a whole bunch of teachers that really realised that dyslexia existed, that they didn't define me by it. and we had a brilliant whole coterie of new teachers. And so some of it was really good. But as I say, the bullying had an impact.
Who were your role models then, especially when you got to secondary school and you did have some support from teachers?
So the head of English, Mr. Giblin, who then eventually became the headmaster of the school years later after I'd left. And I can remember where I was stood, on the tile I was stood, when he congratulated me for joining the English language, because no booker could read what I'd written up until the age of 13. And it was my twin sister who taught me how to, who eventually got me to read books. And, you know, I shall ever be in her debt. It was a Mills and Boon book, so literary snobs, eat your heart out. But she understood the beating heart of a 13-year-old girl, and it got me reading, for God's sake. And she achieved what their teaching profession couldn't achieve. So, you know, Mr. Giblin, because I adored him, he was a real big character. And the head of music, Ron Stanko, because he was driven by excellence. It was about excellence. The head of art, who really vested in me as an individual, because my two passions at school were art and music, and they had to be. I was dyslexic. I wasn't really, I can remember when the careers consultant said you should do 3 sciences, and I said, really? But never mind.
Where did your love of politics come from then?
I was brought up by an amazing family, both my mum and dad, my grandparents, and more my dad's side of the family, who were, after the First World War, created the Labour and Trade Union movement in Eccles. And they did things like women-only speaker meetings, women-only literacy sessions, women-only choirs, wow. You know. And I grew up thinking my grandmother was a Tory because she was into elocution and deportment and all those things. And I got the dressing down of my life when I was 16 by my grandmother, who said, you know, aspiration isn't a Tory value, young lady. And I'll have you know that good working class folk, actually, there is nothing wrong with having pride. And also, when you have an accent, you have to learn how to speak properly. Because back in the day, I mean, if I'm 51 now, nearly 52, I mean, the BBC still had received pronunciation. I can remember when they went regional, and it made a material difference to people like me with a very broad then, not quite now, but very broad northern accent. So I had huge role models in my family. My grandmother and her sister were just doyens. Her sister served Meals on Wheels until she was 86 and beat breast cancer and died when she was 102. And they'd got more politics in their little fingers. But my mum and dad taught me that you just don't walk on by. You have a absolute duty of care to others that you share this world with. And their fight is your fight, because eventually they will come for you, and who will stand up for you? So much to my family's chagrin, I'm pathologically incapable of walking by and seeing an issue that needs to be addressed. You know, it's like, Mom, oh God, no. But they gave me my values. Do as you would be done by. And, you know, if you think you're better than somebody because of class or background or education or race or whatever, think again. The one thing that I never hate, I've brought my children up not to hate. Hate is a word that we don't use. Bigotry, you know, I said to my husband, they're divorceable issues, which is our children will be brought up optimists, and bigotry is not an option. End of story. Those are the two defining, you know, things in terms of my parenting. And so even though I've suffered from, and still suffer from, crippling imposter syndrome, and I've had to remake myself several times after I lost my parliamentary seat and other times, is this absolute unswerving both belief and duty of doing things, affecting change, of standing up for things or people, has driven me.
I want to get on to the challenges you faced in your life and at those different times in a moment, but I want to talk about when you became an MP, because you were just 30. You talk about having imposter syndrome. I'm sure other people, when you walked into Westminster, probably felt you were a bit of an imposter. You were a woman, you're a working class woman, you're a northern working class woman. There weren't many women like you around at the time. Would that be fair to say?
Well, I think that we were part of the revolution that happened with Tony Blair and the Labour Party at that time, created by my wonderful business partner, Margaret McDonough, who created all women shortlists. And I wouldn't have been a Member of Parliament if it wasn't for that, you know, because when I stood to be a candidate, young people, not just women, but young people didn't stand for winnable seats. And young women just forget. And if you didn't look as though you were an Oxbridge first who could be Prime Minister, doubly forget. I can remember going to art college and being shocked to my core that people studied politics because I thought it was something you did. And so I always thought that it would be my friends that went into Parliament. I never had an ambition to go into Parliament. It was life that politicised me. So when I left school, I was good at two things, art and music. So I decided I have to choose one passion. So I chose art. So I went to the local art college and absolutely adored it. I felt as though I was at home, and did my A-levels and foundation course there. And art education started to be under attack then. But I managed to get into Loughborough College of Art. They said, you've got to cope with your disability, your dyslexia, but actually we'll allow you to come in. And just as I entered, then the government decided they wanted to shut independent art colleges. And I just felt I had a real duty to do something about that because, you know, my career, my life chances were materially improved in getting into higher education. Now, what dyslexic art student from a lower working, a very, very lower working class family where parents were serially unemployed, you know, what were their opportunities going to be if, like me, the string to their bow was art and the government shut all the art colleges? So all of a sudden, that was the next leap I took because I realised I was motivated to do something and I had a responsibility to do something and believed we could do something because for me, no is not an option. And the most amazing thing happened. I became a national education policy expert. You know, this Mills and Boon reading, you know, brass band playing artist became a national policy expert. I have no idea. I must have been dropped on my head or visited from Mars or something. But I did. And I beat the pants off the government in every single argument. Loughborough College of Art and Design stayed open. Other College of Art and Design stayed open. They eventually chose, decades later, to merge with Loughborough University. But that got me noticed at a national level. I then got headhunted, lo and behold, by Labour students. I then went on into NUS, and then I became president of NUS. And then because I defeated the government again when they tried to stop student representation, I got headhunted by Saatchi's. And by that point, I realised that I had a thirst for affecting change and I had a skill for affecting change. And where everybody else was a bit like Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake, in other words, oh, Rome is burning, we can't do anything, I'm saying, of course we can do something. You know, because somewhere inside me, the knowledge of physics had stuck, you know, that careers advisory said, do sciences, which is that there's no such thing as standing still. If I move forward, I have changed destiny. Because that means that I've done something, so I've changed the molecular structure, and that means something different is going to happen than if I hadn't moved forward. And so you take what I know in life is you put every foot forward, every chance you get, because it means it changed what the destiny is going to be. So that was how I got into Parliament. I got into Parliament by a random series of events where there was an issue that I felt so passionately about. It motivated me to do something, of which brought me both learning and also attention. And then that meant that through sponsorship, you know, I would have never thought that somebody like me could go to be an NUS exec member. I would have never thought somebody like me could be president of NUS. I would have never gone to work for Saatchi's, and I would have never become a member of Parliament. And all of that was because people that I'd made friends with had said to me, you're going to come and do this for us. You should go and do that. So my job at Saatchi's, a mate that I was involved in the Labour Party worked for Saatchi's, and she said, right, I'm going to work for Sky. You're coming replacing me in my job. So one of the things that I now do in terms of the business that I co-founded with my wonderful, wonderful, amazing business partner, Margaret McDonough, is that we teach organisations and individuals the importance of sponsorship, not mentoring, but sponsorship. Because quite frankly, I would never have done anything, included being MP, without somebody saying, Lorna, you can do this, and more importantly, I'm going to help you do it, and you're going to do it.
Wow. When you reached Westminster on the back of this extraordinary journey, you talked about being bullied when you were at school. We hear a lot about the bullying and harassment that goes on within Westminster. Were you ever party to that, especially being other than a lot of the MPs who were sitting?
Well, when we got elected, there was a mini revolution in the sense that for the first time in the history of British Parliament, the oldest parliament in the world, there were 121 women parliamentarians. Now, out of 659, that's still not many, but it was a revolution back in the day. And 101 of them were Labour, and I chaired that group, the Labour Women's Group. It's the biggest, still to this day, the biggest historic group of women in Parliament. And so there were lots of us that were young. But what was different was that there were no column inches written about the swathe of young men that were elected that were ambitious. But if you look at the column inches that were written with bile and hate and venom and disgust and cynicism about ambitious young women, because ambition, let us not forget, is an ugly look on a woman. It's just simply outrageous that not once did anybody just say, hang on a second, you're celebrating the Blair Revolution because of more women in Parliament, and yet on the other hand you are falling into this, how we socialise, which is that ambition is an ugly look in women. And not once did you ever write a column inch about the myriad of young men who went into Parliament who expected to become a minister and a prime minister. Perish the thought. So there was a lot of us, and a lot of us were young. It was the youngest intake then. I learnt that decision making was a skill that most of my parliamentary colleagues hadn't got, and that shocked me, but I hadn't realised that actually some people find decision making very hard. Now I've been a serial leader for most of my life. I understand that it is a skill, but back in the day it was a realisation. The second thing is that it's the most isolating, de-skilling job I've ever done. If you imagine that you're joining the oldest club in the world, virtually, in terms of parliamentary clubs, and it has a vested interest in making sure that you don't cause trouble, that you don't rock the boat. So if you imagine that the establishment, both of your party and of Parliament, is there to get you to believe that you don't have any power or importance, and that therefore you should toe the line. And it is... unless you go in there with a real purpose other than being a member of Parliament, you can't want to be an MP just for being an MP. You've got to go in and want to change things, because otherwise you would not survive. You can't survive it, because to be yourself, to really be authentically you, as a parliamentarian, is one of the most difficult things that I have ever done. And did I compromise? Of course I compromised. Leadership and decision making is all about compromise. Did I feel as though I compromised too much? Sometimes, on occasion. But actually I was known as Guy Fawkes. The irony of irony is I was no trot. I was a Blairite, I voted for the Iraq War. I, towed the line quite a lot. I mean, I voted for Iraq War because I'd worked with Iraqi dissidents for decades. So it wasn't for me a new issue. But I was still considered to be Guy Fawkes by, people like Margaret Beckett. She thought it was easier to deal with old lefties than it was me, because I wanted to challenge the system. I thought poor people didn't have the time to wait. I didn't think that generations could wait for the next term of a Labour government. We had to take every day as though it was our last day and act accordingly. And maybe it did make me a bit naive, but actually I still believe that Parliament needs to look like the people it represents. And on the day I got elected, it just looked a bit more like northern working class women to me.
When your term as an MP came to an end in 2005, when you lost your seat, you've already alluded to the fact this was a really difficult time in your life. How did you cope with that professional disappointment? Because your whole life then had to, I suppose, restructure.
Well, it wasn't just professional disappointment. When you become a member of Parliament, it becomes you, because people feel as though they own you lock, stock and barrel. There's no private you, because literally you have to, for the electorate to trust you with their families' lives and their children's lives, to make decisions such as war and peace, they have the right to know you, all of you, warts and all. And that means that when you lose, all of you you've rejected. And as people who've read, say, Ed Ball's book, where you die. The parliamentary you, that version of you dies on the day that you lose. And you have to remake yourself. And the only way is forward. And I don't know, I have loads of regrets about how I survived losing. I had to go forward and I cut lots of, I left lots of people behind, because it's very hard as a parliamentarian to still stay involved in your local Labour Party. It's a bit like being the ghost of Christmas past. Everybody thinks you're there to haunt them and you want the seat back. I can remember meeting some of my die-hard, beautiful, amazing supporters, a wonderful Rochdale councillor called Anne Namir, in the supermarket, just randomly, her and the kids, and they had been my best buds for 9 years. And literally, then there was column inches about, I was talking to some activists, was I going to make a comeback? Did I want to see? So I had to totally and utterly kill that side of me. But on the other hand, I learnt more from losing than I did from winning. I learnt that you can remake yourself. Necessity is the mother of all invention, and that's the truth of my life. I've never thought that I had the option to fail. I will regret to my death that I lost, because it's probably the job that defined me the most, and the job that, although I would have never thought of doing, the job that I'm made for in terms of affecting change. And I felt as though all my detractors were were proved right when I lost. And it doesn't make it sane, and it's not what I tell women that, when we are coaching or working with women. But the truth is, I will always carry around that sense of failure, sense of loss. But I have that loss to thank for 2 amazing careers that I've had subsequently. One, running a foreign affairs think tank, because foreign affairs is a deep passion of mine. And I never thought I'd be working with world leaders and the common, about the Middle East and the peace process. And then running an investment fund on fashion and textile manufacturing and creating this wonderful, amazing business, showing global corporations and governments how they can achieve more return on equity and margin by actually promoting women. Fancy that. That actually the answer's, in the room, and it is that you recruit as many women as men. Many of them have better qualifications than men, but you're not as good as promoting them and harnessing their talent as you are men. So let us help you be as good at the female talent as you are at the male talent, and you will be amazed at the rewards that you will harness as a consequence of that.
For someone listening to this who maybe is going through a period of failure, or going through a period in their career when actually the path they thought they would take is closed off to them, or they realised it's not the future that they want anymore, what advice do you give if someone who's been at that enormous crossroads?
That the only way is forward, and putting one foot in front of the other will get you out of that hole and to a higher slope and pinnacle than you've ever been to before, because it will make you stronger. It makes you more resilient. It makes you wiser. You know what you're capable of. You know that you are not going to break. It means that you have to really allow yourself to cherish, to build, to create, to invest in a support network of others. And my total life is about the power of kindness. There would be two couple of themes. What the behavioural scientists called reciprocity, which is if something is given freely and unexpectedly, it will be repaid in heaps. And therefore, the support you give to others in your hour of need will be paid back to you. And you've got to allow them to help you. But in the end, you have got to believe that this too will pass. One of our first alumni on our flagship programme, The Top Flight, she used to say, this too will pass, and you just have to remember that. And you will always be able to do something, and that will get you something else and something else. But you've got to do muscle memory. Your brain is the biggest muscle in your body. And how often do we spend our time giving far too much airtime to our bad angels rather than our good angels? And what we need to do is do all the heavy lifting that Beyonce does with Sasha Fierce, because she doesn't get an arse like that and a performance credibility like that by just allowing the Japanese knotweed to go through her head and say, you can't do it, who do you think you are? You know, actually, no, she's got her alter ego, she's got a good angel, she's got her Sasha Fierce. Or do it the June Sapong way, which is she's got her Agnes, which is her bad angel. Sorry for everybody that's called Agnes, but she's got she's named her bad angel Agnes, and she says, bugger off, Agnes. What I've learned is that you are responsible and capable of remaking yourself, of reminding yourself that I was once powerful or successful or felt pride, and you can recreate that memory. And it's like exercising your arse or your biceps or whatever, is that you need to go back to that memory time and time and time and time and time again. And what you will find is you're walking taller, you are purveying more confidence, because you are remembering that because you have been, therefore you are, and therefore you will be. So the answer is always inside, and you've just got to believe that you can do it. No is not an option.
Just brilliant advice from the fantastic Lorna Fitzsimons. Now, if you're anything like me, you're going to go and listen to all that again and again and again, and then write everything she said on Post-it notes and stick it around your house. I just love it. So whose life and career would you like to know more about? Do let us know. You can email podcast@northernpowerwomen.com. Now it's time for Ask The Hive. It is part of the podcast where you can get some brilliant advice from the Northern Power Women Hive Mind. Now, if you've got a question or a concern about your career or your working life, or in fact anything, get in touch. This month, an issue with work and friendship.
My close friend's applying for a job at the company where I work, and she's asked me to put a word in. But as much as I love her, I don't think she's right for the job. I don't know what to do. Help.
If you're a really close friend, you'll be honest with her and you'll tell her she's not right for the job and not go for it.
I'd say you need to talk to your friend and see why she wants the job, and see why she thinks she is good enough for the job and why she thinks it is applicable to her skills. And then basically see if she can convince you, and if she can't, maybe I think you do need to tell her why you don't think she's good at the job and why you don't think it's the best avenue for her to go down. It's going to be a difficult conversation, but I'd say maybe do it over some drinks or a really friendly environment, and make sure it's not just a, no, I think you'd be really bad at this. Make sure it's a, oh, you know, I don't think it's the most perfect role for you. I think you should go down this way, or maybe this job role is better for you. And I think you do need to tell her. And I definitely wouldn't put a word in if you don't really believe it, but you could maybe talk to the managers after she's interviewed and see kind of their views, so at least you can give her some good feedback at the end of the day as well.
So I think it is right to be honest with her, because she will probably struggle in the company. I think she will probably suffer because of that. And if your relationship is as close as I would hope it is, then maybe not immediately, but she should come to appreciate your honesty.
So I'd say it is a really tough one, because obviously you want to help your friend. And I think in this situation, by recommending it, you would not be helping her, because for whatever reason you don't think she's right. So if she's a good friend, I think you need to have that conversation with her about maybe why the role's not quite right for her, but help her then look at other roles or other things she could be doing to move on if she's not happy where she is.
So I think I would have to be honest with her and say that while I think she's got good skills, perhaps it's not a good fit for her at the moment, or there's a few areas she could develop. That said, I certainly wouldn't discourage her from applying it, but I would also not want a good friend of mine to go into a job that they wouldn't feel happy in and possibly would have difficulty with. So yeah, I think I just have to be honest.
Well, I think the first thing you would do is just really be honest with your friend. I think for me, I would kind of really think about, well, just ask her what her motivations are for, you know, wanting the job, why she wants to work at my company, what she's interested in, where her passions lie, and kind of get to the root of, you know, what's motivating her to do it. And then, yeah, understand where she's coming from, and then maybe just sort of think about what she says and sort of just kind of suggest to her that it may not be a good idea, but kind of take into consideration everything she said and just kind of flip it a little bit to sort of roundabout say, you know, I don't think this is going to be right for you. Maybe it's not right for you right now, and maybe sort of work with her to sort of highlight some key things that she could do in the future to then sort of work her way up into that role.
Thank you so much if you took time to offer your advice this month. Very much appreciated. And next month, what to do when you can't get any response from prospective employers.
I'm trying to get a new job at a fairly junior level, and 9 times out of 10 don't even get a confirmation they have received my application. What can I do to stand out from the crowd?
That's just so frustrating, isn't it? We've all been there, I think, at some point in our career or another. What did you do? Do get in touch if you can offer any advice at all. Just record a voice memo on your phone, and you can then email that to podcast@northernpowerwomen.com. You'll see the little voice memos app on an iPhone or an audio app on your Android phone. Just record it away, send it to us, podcast@northernpowerwomen.com. Or, of course, if you come to our next live panel recording, you can tell us there. All the details we'll post on Twitter @NorthPowerWomen or on Instagram @NorthernPowerWomen. Well, there we go again. I can't believe it. For another month of great stories, great advice and great ideas. A huge thank you to you for listening. Please do leave us your feedback and reviews wherever you're listening to us right now. And please do spread the word. We would love more people to come and join in the conversation. Do save the date. The next episode arrives on Wednesday, the 3rd of July. Until then, this is the Northern Power Women podcast. I'm Sam Walker, and this has been a What Goes On media production for Northern Power Women.